Good morning. We will call this 10 o'clock, August 25th, 2022 special call meeting to order. And certainly I'll start with roll call this morning, Board of Commissioners. I'll start with District 1 Commissioner Henry Mitchell III.
Present.
District 2 and Vice Chairman Kelly Robinson.
Present.
District 3 Commissioner Terenia Parkin.
Present.
District 4 Commissioner Ann Jones-Guider.
Present.
Ramona Jackson-Jones, Chairwoman, present. Board of Commissioners, we do have an established quorum this morning, and certainly wanted to, for point of privilege, wanted to see if I could have James Worthington to come up and just grace us with a prayer, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll move right into our meeting.
Certainly. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let us pray. Lord, our Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for letting us be here again today, Lord. Thank you for all those that are here, Lord, to participate in local government, Lord, and those that are here to decide the best path forward for this county. Lord, I ask you that you be with them, provide them wisdom and guidance, Lord, that their decisions will be something you would be pleased with, Lord, and something that will take this county to a better place, Lord. Just ask all these things amongst us. Just give us peace, give us cooperation. Lord, just let us be graceful. These things I ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, Managing Director James Worthington, for gracing us with prayer this morning. And also, Board of Commissioners, thank you for being here for this special call meeting.
Madam Chair, you'd like to call me?
All right, thank you. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, thank you so much, Director, Managing Director James Worthington, for gracing us with prayer this morning. And also, thank you, Board of Commissioners, for being here. And also, the citizens of Douglas County, thank you for being here this morning. All right, Board of Commissioners, we have a public hearing this morning, and certainly wanted to bring our Chief Financial Advisor up this morning, Mrs. Ramona Bivens, and I'm sorry, CFO, our Chief Financial Officer this morning, if she could just come forth and give us a report regarding the public hearing. The public hearing is the millage rate. It's regarding the millage rate this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair Robinson, Commissioners, Deputy County Administrator Perry, Directors, and citizens of Douglas County. This morning, we're having our third required public hearing on the proposed millage rate to support the 2022 budget. So each year, the levying authority is required to set a millage rate to support the current year's budget per state law. So if the recommended millage rate is higher than the rollback rate, then we're required to have these hearings. So what is a digest? The digest is the total net assessed values of real property, which is your real estate, land, buildings, or anything that is constructed on those or erected on the land, and personal property, which is your equipment, non-real estate items, investments, machinery, things of that nature, along with the motor vehicles, timber, mobile homes, and heavy-duty equipment. The millage rate is a tax rate that is applied to the assessed value of your taxable property in order for us to calculate the property taxes that are to be paid each year. It's usually stated as dollars per thousand of valuation. And for example, 5 mills is equal to $5 per thousand of assessed value. And we use that when you're calculating it for ease, we round up to the 100, so it would be 0.005. And because I'd like to make it easier for the public to understand, we're proposing to set our millage rate at the 12.563 rate. So if you wanted to look at your assessed values that you have to calculate your taxes that you would pay, you would multiply that assessed value times .0012563 for ease of calculations. Each year, as I stated earlier, the levying authority sets the millage rate. The rollback rate that I spoke of earlier is a millage rate that would raise the same amount of revenue as last year if applied to the current value of the property that was on last year's tax digest. In other words, it would be considered revenue neutral. The calculated rollback rate for this year is 11.927. We are recommending, the current millage rate is 12.563, and we're recommending to maintain that same millage rate for this year. As I stated in our previous hearings, the board, the majority of the board, by consensus, stated that they would like to leave it at the 12.563 and not go with the rollback rate. This shows the historical 5-year history of the digest plus the current year levy. And as you can see on this, the maintaining the 12.563 on this year's values would generate $75.4 million in revenue, and that is $10 million more than what that millage rate generated on last year's property values. Again, we had about almost 17% growth in property values, so because of that, that's why it generates more revenue. And on here, it shows that the taxes levied is 16.7% more than last year. However, when you calculate the increase, it is 5.3% increase over the rollback rate. So when you're looking at an individual's home, so how does this affect the homeowner? So what we use, a home with a fair market value of $160,000. Of course, you're only assessed at 40% of that, so that's $64,000. And if it's a homestead property, it's $6,000 exemption, so the taxable value is $58,000. If you apply the rollback rate of 11.927, that homeowner would pay $691.77 in taxes. However, at the proposed rate of 12.563, they would pay $36.89 more, $728.65 is what they would pay. That's if we maintain the current millage rate. So how are your tax dollars being spent? So the budget, we have a general fund operating budget of $110.9 million. This chart shows the percentages by category. So 35% of that $110 million has been spent in the public safety area, which I believe was a priority that's set by the board and the community as well. 27% goes to general government, and that's all other departments to operate the county. Then we have 17% going to the judicial area, and then the remaining areas, Parks and Rec, Health and Welfare, Public Works, Planning and Community Development, are all less than 10% of that budget. At the last meeting, I was asked to prepare, do a comparison showing the value of one meal. Because what happens is when you look at the property values in other counties and their millage rate that they set to generate their revenues, because their property value is much higher than ours, their millage rate could be lower than ours. So when I did the comparison, it does show that Douglas County has the second highest millage rate. However, we are second from we have the second lowest property values. So this slide shows, for instance, if you look at Fulton County, their one meal generates $78 million. When in order for us to generate $78 million, our meal has to be 12.563. That only generates $75 million. So it's a little less than what one meal generates for Fulton County. They have property values of $78.1 billion. So when you're looking at the millage rate, you also have to look at the property values and the value of that one meal so we can make sure that we're generating the revenue required to operate the county. Also, I just wanted to, as a reminder of our funding requirements for our capital projects, at the end of the year when we close out the financials, the fund, we have a fund balance and we set aside, we have reserved and we have unassigned. The board has a policy in place that 25% of that unassigned fund balance would be assigned to support capital improvements and/or public pay incentives. So any excess revenues that we have at the end of the fiscal year will be assigned accordingly per the board's established policy. Again, as I stated at the beginning of the presentation, this is the last of the 3 required public hearings for the proposed millage rate, and we're asking that the millage rate be set immediately following this public hearing. And Madam Chair, that is all I have. I yield the floor back to you for any questions from the board or the community.
Thank you so much, Madam CFO. If you could, what I'll do, I'm going to open the public hearing, and I'll just ask if you could just stand by once the public hearing is closed. Thank you. Board of Commissioners, certainly at your pleasure, I will open this public hearing. This public hearing is now open for citizens who, or if you want to speak for or on behalf of the proposed millage rate. Okay. Being none, do we have any citizens here that want to speak for or against? I'm getting ready to move to the against. Okay. Anyone here to speak against this proposed millage rate? Okay. Did you want to speak for? For, yes, ma'am. Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
If you could just give us your, oh, that's okay, I understand.
Glad to have you.
If you could just state your name and your address for the record, ma'am. Thank
Sure.
you.
I am Elizabeth Bennett. My address is 4347 Midway Road in Douglasville, 30134. Good morning to the board. And hi, Mr. Mitchell again. But now you've all heard the numbers and the stats, so I'm not going to go over those again. But what I'd like to do is ask a couple of questions. I'd love to hear from Greg Baker. He is our tax commissioner. He is voted in. After all, this is going to affect his department more than anyone. He's going to be the one that hears the questions, the complaints, the appeals. And I enjoyed the PowerPoint. It was very impressive. But you used the asset example of 166,000. The average home in Douglasville as of August 2022 has a market value of $328,500. I don't believe you're assessing the houses as just a little over half their value. There's a current video out right now with Rand Paul addressing the spending in Washington, D.C., and I believe it fits well with this board. Horatio Bunce is talking to Davy Crockett about when they sent 20,000 to Georgetown victims of fire. Bunce is quoted as saying, "Power of collecting and dispersing money at pleasure is the most dangerous power that can be trusted to any man. While you collect money to distribute to one, you are drawing thousands from those who are worse off than he." And the example I can think of is us paying the lawsuits for the judge or any elected official. If they have a lawsuit, they should pay their own legal fees. I wish I could find the words to tell the board that they would hear with their hearts and not their ears. With the tax increase, you are taking the money for overpriced projects from seniors who have no way of getting an increase from their employers because they are on Social Security. Many are choosing again between medicine, food, or mortgage, or rent, whichever one you want to go to. You are taking away the right of boomers who are stuck taking care of their parents and their children, wondering how will they make their own bills and send their children to school while having to help their parents cope. For the younger generation, waiting to start their lives, who are saddled with rising interest payments, how will these young people get ahead? If their rent is going up to a point that they have to move in with several buddies or back home with their parents. With this tax increase you are proposing, you are making it very appealing to take those calls, as we all get, to sell our home to corporations, especially the seniors. With District 1 being at 60.1% corporate-owned, it makes the rent skyrocket. While I'm sure landlords appreciate this, it makes living in Douglasville difficult at best. What you're creating is a transient population, a population that does not care which way the county is ran. But then again, maybe that's your goal. After all, even the World Economic Forum has clearly stated, by 2030, you will own nothing and you will like it. I understand the board is hedging its bets on the increase. Housing markets will bust soon. Most economists predict 7 months at best. When this happens, the raise will assure the board can cover their budget, as Commissioner Robinson has stated must be done. If the economists are wrong, like they were with the transient inflation now at 8.5%, and the housing market stays the same, then the board really is in for a windfall to add to their surplus. We are all still suffering from the sticker shock opening this year's bills. Many had 28% increase. By adding to it, you are chasing the citizens out of this county. All we are asking is that you trim your spending like we've had to spend ours at home. There's a lot more that needs to be addressed with this board. That needs to be corrected. But I'll wait until I'm elected, and then I will bring to the floor at the proper time. It is time that we, the people of Douglasville, get our voice back. It's how we want the country, our county ran, and how our quality of life can be preserved. Thank you for your time, and with that, I yield back, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Bennett, for your comments this morning, and certainly this matter would be taken under advisement. I did not state earlier, as you come forward to speak, 5 minutes is what I've allowed this morning, as I did in our previous public hearing. Typically it's 3, but certainly want to hear your voices. We have anyone else who would like to speak this morning? Please state your name and give us your address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Carol Newborn, and I live at 9448 Cedar Creek Place in Douglasville. I'm really amazed that this whole auditorium is not filled with citizens of this county. I'm just amazed. My topic today about this millage rate is, when is enough for our board? You have raised everything for the past 3 years to where people are having a hard time affording their homes because they can't afford the tax increases. They really are. Enough is enough. The newest tax hikes are just ridiculous, and the reason we have tax hikes is because your spending is out of control. You're spending on frivolous things that we don't need. People right now are hurting to pay their bills. They're hurting for food, and you're worried about building a library, a new library, and a new park, and giving people retirement benefits from day one of being hired on at this county. That's going to bankrupt our retirement fund. And my husband gets a retirement from this county, so I am very concerned about that process. But the spending, the parks, the library is awful. And I've dealt with finances before. I ran a $90 million store in this county. And if I had raised people's, what I sold them 30% for 3 years, or 28%, whatever it is, they would have fired me. They would have fired me. And if all of you were in school, you would get an F on budgeting and financing. An F, because you don't know how to do it. You're not doing it. You're not budgeting. I have never, out of all the videos I've watched of this committee, never heard, we're cutting the budget on this. We're rearranging the budget on this. We're cutting the budget on that. You don't know how to cut a budget. All you know how to do is spend. And I, for one, as a citizen of this county, I'm tired of it. And I can't believe this whole auditorium is not filled with tons of citizens that are not tired of it, because they all talk about it. But I decided today I needed to come say something, because I'm just tired of this spending. And as frivolous as tips that are ridiculous and this, that, and the other that we're spending on, that's my money you're spending. And I think you don't realize it's not your money to give away. It's not the county's money to give away. This is our money. And we entrusted you to budget, to do what's right for this county and to help this county. And I don't see that happening. I see a lot of frivolous stuff, a lot, and the whole county sees it. I would just like a commitment from every one of you today, on the record today, as to when you plan to balance the budget and when you plan to relieve the taxpayers of these increases that we're seeing for the past 3 years. You need to learn to balance the budget. So I don't want to hear a speech from each one of you, 5 minutes of ramble on, because some of y'all do that. But I just want a real commitment from each one of you. Are you going to balance the budget next year? Since you haven't done it this year, are you going to balance the budget? Are you going to balance the budget? 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 Are any of y'all willing to commit today on record that you're willing to balance the budget? And I don't care if you're Democrat, Independent, or a Republican. I wouldn't vote any of you in office again. They ought to all vote you all out, because none of you are doing what we're paying you to do. And that's to balance the budget and run this country. And I just feel like, as a citizen, we should all be ashamed, and y'all should be ashamed for us not standing up and for y'all not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I would like a commitment today from all of you. Can't get a commitment. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Ms. Newborn, thank you so much for your voice in the community. Respectfully, the budget has been budgeted every year since I've been in office, or balanced, for lack of a better term, which you used. Respectfully, again, I appreciate you coming forward, and would love to have a personal conversation with you one-on-one, so we can show you some records and some notes and some data that can refute what you just said. But I appreciate you. Your voice is very valuable to me. Do we have anyone else that need to speak this morning? Please come forth.
Good morning, and thank
Good
you
morning.
all for allowing me to speak.
Good morning.
My name is Sarah McCoy.
Ms.
I live at
McCoy.
6329 North Summers Circle, area code 30135.
Okay.
Ms. Carthen, you represent me, my husband, my son, daughter-in-law, and 2 of my 3 grandchildren. My husband and I moved to Douglas County in August of 1971, and our son was born here. He and his family still live across the street from us. We have lived in our current home for 44 years. You might say I'm vested in Douglas County. I am also blessed to be one of the senior citizens that hopes to remain here and enjoy the rest of my life in Douglas County. I'm beginning to wonder if there will be room for older folks like me. As you all get older, you may want to consider how you will be impacted by decisions made even today. Or will you move just to another community? What I would like you to consider is that for those of us who receive Social Security payments, our monthly benefits this year are based on the 2022 COLA raises, which granted a 5.9% increase for Social Security beneficiaries. The average Social Security check in this country is $1,657. And at this time, that leaves a 2.5% difference between the inflation rate of 8.5% and the raises we, the citizens, received, which leaves many of us on the losing side of that equation. Retired seniors cannot just go to their employer and ask for a raise, because these raises are done at the discretion of the United States government. Although this is money we have worked for all our working lives and was taken from our paychecks, there is not a location we can go to dip into our account to cover our shortfalls that will cover the rise in these taxes that the board is about to approve. With this proposed property tax increase and the proposed SPLOST that will be on the November ballot, you are putting many seniors at risk of having to choose between food, medicine, or mortgage. Many seniors have lived in Douglasville for years. This is where they raise their families. This is where those families come for gatherings. Seniors have the desire to stay in their homes, It is where they are comfortable. Many need to stay in their homes because their memory is failing and they need their familiar things around them. They need the security that they find in their homes. To rip this out of their lives throws many into a state of despair and depression. Potentially, you are making it difficult for many to stay in their homes. With this increase, some of those citizens are choosing to sell their homes, many to corporations, and then move away. The burden that you will place on seniors is tremendous, and many just can't afford it. My fear is that the board has already made up their minds and that the tax burden for your overspending will be voted into place just to keep all of your projects afloat. While an additional library that would be in a few miles of my home may sound like a good idea, and that having a new park created that is in the middle of nowhere and within 2 miles of my home may sound nice, these are not necessary additions to our community at this time and will only add to the unnecessary spending that will become a burden to many citizens. Spending at a time when we should be acting cautiously with our dollars is just not appropriate. We have parks aplenty in Douglas County that could be expanded or improved, and we have a lovely library, Dog River, within a few miles of my home that could be advertised more or special events set up to be held there at the library. Let's improve or expand the facilities we currently have rather than spend money we do not have, and let us be wise in how we spend hard-earned money belonging to the citizens of Douglas County. I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. McCoy. Appreciate you this morning coming in. Thank you. We have anyone else here to speak? And clerk, I hope you're keeping up with the 5 minutes for me. Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
You said you're new to the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not as prepared as these nice ladies because I just went on the website last night,
Yes, ma'am.
and I was shocked that the website's not up to date with information that we, the citizens, need to prepare for something like this. I could only find up to 2019 facts and figures. And I just wonder why our website is not up to date, so that we can have the right information. And you wanted to speak one-on-one with this lady on her questions, but we all need that information. We all need to know, when was this budget approved? And budgets are that, they're a budget, but you don't have to spend everything in your budget. You can, that's a placeholder, and you don't want to go over that, but you don't have to spend it.
I need your name and your address.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. Okay.
My name is Michelle Kurt.
Did you get that, clerk?
Sorry, what is your last name?
Kirk. I live at 6735 Pin Oak Drive.
Yes,
in
ma'am.
Mason Creek Estates.
Okay,
In
thank
District 3. I found out last night. I did get that information online.
Okay.
When I thought I was in District 4 all along. I found out I have another representative that I've never knew. And I watched your video last night. That was all I got off the website. But my husband and I have been in Douglas County for almost 25 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And after learning about this on Nextdoor, which I am so thankful I did not miss this last third meeting.
Excuse me, could I just
see.
ask you, could you be specific about what you learned about? I'm just trying to follow you.
This meeting.
Okay, this meeting.
This millage rate increase that's been proposed.
Okay.
And why it was proposed. Her PowerPoint, we couldn't even read. It was so fine. We needed something in our hands. I picked up an agenda, but I didn't nothing else was on the table. But to compare us to Fulton County, I felt like that's not apples to apples. Fulton County is larger than us, has more properties than us. That is not an apples to apples comparison for our mill rate.
Right. And we have about 10. We'll make sure we go over, review all those. I'll let you finish,
But
Mrs.
when
Michelle.
did the excess not be returned to taxpayers? Who made that decision?
This is your moment, not mine. I need you to just speak. The Board of Commissioners don't
But
answer questions at
I'm
this time.
asking questions. I'd like to get answers to them.
Usually the public hearing, the Board of Commissioners don't respond to your questions. We're listening, and certainly, again,
And
I can talk
And
to you.
that's the way every public meeting is? There's no back and forth communication?
No, ma'am, on the public hearings is not. We're here to hear your concerns.
Okay, I'm here speaking for those that could not be here,
Yes, ma'am.
that are working hard, trying to make ends meet,
Yes, ma'am.
maybe working 2 jobs to feed their families. I'm here in their stead because they can't be here to speak to you and let you know they are hurting. We have inflation higher than it's been in 40 years. And it needs to reflect in our spending of our money and our setting of budgets and our setting of mill rates right now. We need help right now. Our families need help right now. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind in this environment to lower. It was lowered back in 2017. It's not that long ago, 5 years. The board lowered the millage rate. We had an excess, a reserve fund of $14.5 million in this county 5 years ago. And look how we've grown in the last 5 years. And what's wrong with accepting the rollback? Giving our citizens something, anything that you could give them to show them you care. You care about their budgets and their lives here in Douglas County. We've got a state government that has huge excesses through this time period, and they're giving the money back to the taxpayers. And they're proposing to give more money back to the property owners in the state. If our state can do this, why can't our county do this? You know, it won't be as big, but anything to show goodwill and good governance, good financial governance of our tax dollars.
Mrs. Michelle, your time is up.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm
I
so
thank
sorry.
you for the
But I thank
opportunity.
you for coming in.
And I'm going to become more involved,
Yes,
but I
ma'am.
want information available. I
Okay.
want to be able to go online to your website and see current information so that I can be better informed
Yes, ma'am.
of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Michelle. Certainly want to respond to the facts and figures questions. We had a release of those facts and figures this year, which is 2022, and I will follow with the communications team to determine why it's not on the website. But we certainly dispersed it in Chapel Hill News and Views. We took about 10 pages, something that's never been done in this county. And I've just released everything, our financial position, everything about our sheriff's office, but we will make sure it's on that website. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, but we made sure that the 2022 information was released to the citizens. But I apologize that it's not on there. Yes, ma'am. Yes, okay. And we'll take care of it. I'm going to make sure. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Any other citizens want to come up? Come on up, and please start with your name and your address, and
Sure,
then
sorry.
I won't have to interrupt you.
My name is Catherine Massey, and I live at 3418 Melanie Lane, Douglasville, 30135.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just here because I'm learning, and I'm also asking for the rollback amount, because, again, everything's going up, and I am a senior citizen. Although I work part-time, I I get a little bit from Social Security, get a little bit from retirement, but it's going crazy. And I'm asking to please use the rollback amount. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Massey, Mrs. Massey. Anyone else here to speak? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Alton. I'm at 1475 North Flat Rock Road, Douglasville, Georgia, 30134. Everyone has very awesome points here today, and I hope everybody is listening because we are having difficult time surviving at this point. Now with the taxes going up, the millage rate is just like the hair that broke the camel's back. Be honest, it needs to be rolled back because my friends actually are housing a family of 4 right now in their home because they can't find a place to live. They're trying to, but there's 3 people in that home that are working. Okay, they're not making high dollar. With the food increases, the power increases, the tax increase, everything, it's just too much. It's too much. A lot of people have become homeless just in the last couple months. Now, if you can move forward and just that little extra bit is going to make the difference of cracking your entire county, you're going to have a homeless problem. Are you aware of that? They're upping the rents on all the apartments. Some of them went up $800. Okay, that's because of the corporate coming in, and of course the property values going up. So everything is colliding together. We are hurting. We are hurting. The food is supposed to go up even more. I mean, I can't even get a roast for $35? And we used to pay like $12. This is all crashing. And this little bit will help us. I mean, it's bad enough, but this little bit might get us to be able to keep our heads above water. That's all I gotta say. We're screaming at you, asking for help. If you can make it on a rollback, please try. Because we can't take much more. There's a lot of people moving out of this county. You're gonna have a transient community. And if that's what you want, God help us all.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Cindy. Okay. Ms. Batchel? Sharon Batchel? Come on up. And thank you so much, Mrs. Cindy. I didn't get your last name. Is Autumn? Alton. Alton. Thank you. Thank you. Ms.
Sharon.
Batchel? Okay.
Sharon Bachtel, 6331 South Skyline Drive. In 2008, our millage rate was increased because the housing market crashed and the value of our homes went down. The BOC needed to pay their bills, and the citizens understood that. In 2020, you raised the millage rate 27%, not because assessments were going down. Assessments have been going up every year. In 2017, my assessments jumped 40%, and this year, 20%. You raised rates not because you needed money, but because you wanted money. The more money you get, the more money you want to spend. Money to give to yourselves and your friends. This past year, we have seen you vote to spend $20,000 on Facebook. You gave a $175,000 contract to Collaborative Firm to educate us on SPLOST. We only have a couple of months left till November, and I have not seen one thing about SPLOST. You doubled the salary of the coroner, who does not do investigations required by law. You also gave her money for a fence, a building, and a remodel, and then turned around and sold that building to the city, and all of that will be demolished. You gave the probate judge a hefty raise and allowed her to keep all of the fees, making her the highest paid judge in the county. The chairwoman has stated that there is a surplus of $33 million. I say it is time to give back our 27%, roll back the millage rate all the way so our taxes do not increase. I would also like to make a statement for Mark Turner, who reached out to me to speak for him because he could not come this morning. He says, "I am originally from Douglasville, but was away for many years while serving in the Army. I moved back in 2018 and bought my home in Villa Rica at that time. My property taxes have risen every year since. I'm not understanding this, seeing there have been no upgrades to my home. They have gone from $1,800 to $4,000. I feel they are trying to run us property owners out of town. All while we are also picking up the tab for the BOC members, attorneys, overnight stays at conventions, and much more." And then he says, "Enough is enough."
Thank you so much, Mrs. Batchel. Any other remarks this morning from our citizens? Okay. You can come on up. Thank you.
Very nervous.
Well, don't be
I'm not a
nervous.
public speaker at all. Hi, Ann.
Hey.
Mr. Robinson and Madam Chair.
Mhm.
You're my commissioner. How you doing? They've switched my county several times. My name is Toya Sasser. That's Toyassasser. Do you need an address? You need an address?
Please. Your address, please. Your address, please.
Oh, my address, 5040 Starler Lane. I'm trying to find my notes. You get? I was interested in seeing that the person keep quoting the house for $160,000 and going up by $36 a year. The Board of Appraisal has increased houses where that person is not going to increase by $36 up, if her house has moved up from $160,000. And there's like a 90% chance that it probably did. In regards to information I know for a fact, my mortgage is going to go up by $100 a month because they have given my house an inflated value. And when I spoke with the Board of Commissioner, they said, well, go to the board. When I spoke to the Board of Appraisal, their answer was, go to the Board of Commissioner and maybe they would roll back the millage rate. So that's why I'm here, because the Board of Appraisal has told me that you would be my recourse as far as my $100 a month more mortgage. And I'm and I'm thinking that with this inflated value of houses and the millage rate as it stands, and even if it goes down to 11.5, you're going to get a lot of money. Our county, not you. Not you. Our county is going to get a lot of money from the inflated value of houses, because I think the Board of Education has already raised their millage rate. So our only recourse now is to our commissioners. And like she said, the increase is not only, though, passed off to seniors. I'm a baby senior, right? It's passed off to my children who also rent in this county. Because if they're renting in this county, they're going to see that same $100 more raising their rent. So it's not about homeowners, it's also about renters. Okay. This county is a very beautiful county, and I don't understand why the word transient is used so poorly, because that's our backbone probably of many of our jobs. But anyway, that's all. But thank y'all.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sasser, Mrs. Sasser. Thank you. Any other remarks from our citizens? Okay, being none, any more remarks? Any more remarks? If not, being none, this public hearing is now closed. Thank you, citizens of Douglas County, for your voices this morning. CFO, if you could come back up to the podium and certainly allow the Board of Commissioners, if they have any questions for you at this time, to ask some questions. Certainly, I have one Board of Commissioners, certainly if you would allow me to start first. the slide that we pulled up initially, the first slide that you pulled up, the one with the one meal value comparison.
Yes, ma'am.
And myself, and certainly Commissioner Carthen and I kind of wanted to look at that meal comparison. And certainly it was a very rude awakening for me to see that some counties' meal equals double or triple of what Douglas County meal. So I had to have a meal lesson to understand how how it works. So if you could just explain again, and really education is the key to success in any environment. It allows our citizens to understand, because when you're saying millage rate, meal, all of it becomes really, it's confusing. So if you could explain once again, and then talk about those 10 counties that you compared that meal to, and just focus on the value of Douglas County's meal. Douglas County's meal is valued, one meal is $6 million. So if you could just start from there with the comparison.
Certainly, Madam Chair. So as you stated, you and actually Commissioner Carthen asked me to provide
Page
the value
9,
of one meal.
page 9.
And if you have a copy of the PowerPoint that's on the back table back there, it's on page 9 of the PowerPoint presentation. So we looked at 10 counties in the metro Atlanta area to look at what their property values were, their net assessed property values, which is what is used to apply the millage rate to get the taxes paid for that county. We also looked at their millage rates that had been approved or proposed, and there are 2 counties on the list, Douglas and Fayette, who have not approved. Those are their proposed millage rates. Fayette County is approving this morning, as well as Douglas County. All of the other counties on this sheet have approved their millage rate. And if I remember, I believe all of them, maybe except for one, I can't remember which one it was, did not go with the rollback rate. So as you can see, the property values in other counties are much higher.
Did you say they did not go back?
No, they did not go to the rollback rate. The majority of these counties did not. And actually, I spoke to a couple of them myself, and because I had a relationship with Henry County and Fayette County. But as you can see on here, from Fulton County, I have these in order from highest to lowest with the other counties. And as you can see, Fulton County has the highest property values, and their millage rate is 9.330. That generates $728 million for that county. The value of that one meal, if that one meal is $78 million. If you look at, again, at Douglas County, our net property values is $6 billion. That is, $72 billion less than Fulton County. At 12.563 millage rate, that generates $75.4 million. The value of one meal in Douglas County is $6 million. So our one meal is worth $6 million. Fulton is one meal is $78 million. And if you look at the others, Gwinnett, so I use Cobb because it's a close county. Their property value is at $39.1 billion compared to our $6 billion. Their millage rate is lower, but that one meal generates $39.1 million compared to our $6 million. DeKalb, again, is at 36.3. Cherokee is at 13.9 billion. Their millage rate is at 4.995. That generates $69.6 million. The value of their one meal is $13.9 million. Wow. And you have the others, Clayton County, 10.4 billion. They have the highest millage rate. Their one meal is valued at 10.4 million. And you see that Carroll has the lowest property values at $2.7 billion. Their millage rate is 7.580. It generates total revenue of $20.8 million, which equates to $2.7 million per meal. So when I think someone said, this is an effort to compare apples to apples regardless of the population. Taxes are set based on the values. So if you have a lower value, your millage rate would be higher to get to that revenue that you need to operate the county. And also, I just want people to remember that the property taxes it's not, it's our main source of revenue, but we also have other sources of revenue. But this is the majority, the largest pot of our revenue that we have to run the county with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, board? Certainly, as I had one. Any questions? Vice Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. All right, so appreciate that. Just in listening to the citizens, I do appreciate your sentiments. You know, sitting here during this period of time, you have those who want yes, those who want no, those who want no, those who want yeses. There's never in between, ever on any decision that's made. I do acknowledge, you know, different views. What I try not to do is get caught up in an ideological bent. I won't debate a difference with a citizen. Our job is just to listen. Each one of us have on average 35,000 citizens we have to consider in representing voices. No one person becomes the proxy for everybody else that they may be here for. And we're sensitive to that. We understand. I understand. I'll speak for myself. We don't take this lightly. I think there is a role of distinguishing that what the role the Board of Commissioners does. Yes, we're the highest governing authority at the local level, but we don't set the appraised value. We don't collect. And so a lot of times we got to be that group. At the end of the day, the five of us all know, but at the end of the day, we'll take it. So we don't have to take on an unnecessary burden when we mentally understand the difference between our role and everybody else. But one thing I do want to speak to is use of funds. Seeing that there's some of us who've been here long enough, been here since 1990, so that gives me context. It's about a run of a mortgage, 30 years as an adult. So let's have that conversation, that this population has went from 70,000 to 93 to 124 to 146 or so. It's doubled. And the question becomes, what did you do with the money that was collected along the way? I like 08 because that's when I came in. How did we maintain this county to this point? It's really our role. And I've got to have that conversation because I hear you, but everything's deteriorated. Everything's falling apart. Right, you haven't maintained parks. You haven't paid people. Now, what I don't like is the selection of targeting 2 African-American women saying they shouldn't get this, but you want everybody else to get a raise. That I cannot accept as a position, because that's an isolation. That's not consistent. That's just me. I can't support that. Not as an effort to say that it reflects everybody else's views, because it doesn't. That's important. But what I do respect is that, right, what should we do? The Board of Commissioners made a commitment earlier this year that says, wait, let's hold off on the revisit. There's only 2 times we should really look at the budget, maybe 1 time annually. And I was prepared to have a conversation about, okay, guys, now where were we? There was a need. Look. There was a need. The question is, do we take care of public safety like we said we're going to do, or not? What I don't agree with is you take certain money, put it in one pocket, and then you deprive everybody else. That's a false narrative. And that's dangerous. All right, so let's just take care of this group, and then we're going to give back and take away. Nobody else gets any other value, no other benefits. That's an ideological. And I have to rebuke that. I cannot receive that because it doesn't reflect my district. It does not. It's like, ooh, listen to that narrative. Wow, what about everybody else? What about those people who need what they need? And I always try to like, okay, but how do you balance it? Right? But we get to speak too. We are all citizens. So since we all got about 5 minutes, and probably my last closure, I won't get into the budget right now. It's not necessary. We know what the needs were. We know that we're paying for the current budget. The board pretty much did hold to its own. We have been pushing back on spending, especially on the SPOS, my last transportation. We had to hold off on some major projects. Like, okay, guys, that's enough. That's a false storyline that says that we had said slow down. I can only speak for me. I know I've uttered those words. Pull up, guys. Pull up, staff. Pull up. So it's important that if you're going to assert it, prove it, that I didn't say it, or that the board has not in some kind of way, whether it was collectively or individually, somebody said, like, look, balance it out. We had no problem telling the staff, slow down. That's how we set the budget, like, slow down. We're not swinging the budget by 15 points and having the edge, like, no, guys, this is what you guys asked us to do. This is what you asked us to do to maintain. This is what you asked us to do. Take care of public safety. We did. Make sure we take care of the staff who is delivering services. We did. Yeah, but there are other ideals. There's other views of what life in Douglas should be. It cannot be linear. It cannot be one way. It should be inclusive. It should not be exclusive. And that's always a challenge I have, like, okay, but what about everybody else? This language, I was born here all my life, and half this kind of moved in here, and it's like as if their voice does not matter, as if their voice cannot be equally yoked. I have a fundamental problem with that. This is where everybody's equal. You got to balance it out based on your character of your district. I think that's important. This is not necessarily a hard decision, but nonetheless, it's important since we're introducing that narrative. And these appeals are politically yoked, ideologically strewn. Just like, okay, are y'all really here about what we're setting, or you just want to put forth an ideological narrative? All right, with that being said, Madam Chair, I yield. I have nothing else to say until you're ready to call the question.
Okay. Any other comments, Board of Commissioners? Any? Commissioner Guider?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bivens, I had asked you before the meeting for some figures. To roll the entire amount back, how much additional taxes would the county bring in?
Okay. Commissioner Goddard, I did get that information. So last year, the taxes levied was $64.5 million. If we go to the rollback rate, that would generate $71 million, which is about approximately $6.5 million would be more levied than the prior year.
Compared to almost 11 million.
Yes, ma'am, 10.9.
Yeah, almost 11 million.
Yes, ma'am.
From one year to the other.
Yes.
Okay. But in 2017, I think we collected, or we levied, 44 million, and then this year is up to 75 million. That's 31 million increase in those 5 years. So that's a pretty big jump. Now, you were comparing us to Fulton County, and you read some of these other counties, but our two most comparable counties is Paulding and Carroll, because we're still rural, like they are. And Paulding County, theirs is 4 mills, and so ours is quite a bit more at 12.563. Even Henry County is a lot bigger than us, but their meal brings in a little bit more than ours. However, look how their rate is compared to ours. So that's about 4 mills difference. Carroll County is about 5 mills different. Paulding County is about 5 mills difference. So I'm just saying, as someone spoke this morning, compare apples to apples. We don't need Fulton, we don't need Cherokee, we don't need Gwinnett County as a comparison, because we're not in the same ball field as them. In fact, they have ball fields. They have Whitewater, they have Six Flags, they have all these other things that we do not have. And so it's better not to compare us to the metro county areas like that. Now, someone was talking about inflation. Inflation is 8.5. And it only came down because a lot of the governors took the state tax off of the gas. But ground beef is right at 9.7% increase. Bacon, 9.2% increase. Eggs, 38%. Milk, 30%. These are everyday things that the average family buys. Fish, 8.7% increase. So in January of 2021, the inflation rate was 1.4, and now it's 8.5. People are living, their dollar is not worth near what it was a year ago, over a year ago. That's what inflation is. The dollar bill, the value of the dollar goes down. So do you know what our fund balance, the exact amount, was it 33 million?
So at the end of 2020, the fund balance unaudited is $40 million. Of that, 28 million of it is unassigned that we could use. And also with that, I just want to remind the board that this is the first year that the county has not had to do a TAN. Our estimated, our average operating expenses per month is between $8 and $9 million. So that $28 million sustains us because we don't get our budget starts on January 1 each year.
And we have to exhaust the fund balance just about before we can borrow.
Right, but in the past, because you didn't have a sustainable fund balance or substantial fund balance, the county has had to get a TAN, which costs additional, that creates an additional expense.
But
because you have to pay
the interest rate was so low, it really didn't cost a whole lot to borrow the money. But I was on the finance committee that voted this year not to borrow. Okay, so I know about the TANs and everything. And
Well, I was just trying to let the public understand that the value of having a substantial fund balance saves the county money because we don't have that interest rate if we borrow money.
But we've got 28 million now,
yes, ma'am.
and then you're going to add another 11 million.
Maybe it depends on how we end the year. Remember, we did give increases, almost a little over $9 million in salary increases that we're using ARPA funds for, but that ARPA money goes away in a couple of years. So the board is going to have to sustain that in the general fund budget moving forward.
And another thing about from 2017 to now, there wasn't a splosh before 2017 for several years. So the splosh, you know, we made a lot of money with that we did capital improvements with, which badly needed. But, I'm not speaking against splosh or anything, but, and then the ARPA funds, 28 million came down. We're doing a lot of things with the ARPA funds, the CARES funds. We've had a lot of extra money come in. But I can just say that enough is enough. I'm sorry. No, I don't apologize for that. Because the budget drives the tax rate. The spending drives the tax rate. And if we have a policy not to spend more than that, but then we go into our fund balance for $500,000 for a park that a lot of people didn't want in that area. That's not my area, but I understood that they did not want it. And then for a $12 million library, twice the size, twice the cost of any library in this county. It's up to 12 million, and by the time it gets built, it's probably going to be a lot more than that because inflation is going to keep going up. But this is not a tax increase per se. The rate is not going up, but like someone said, the assessments went up. And so everybody's taxes are going to go up. Who it is going to hurt is the businesses, especially the small businesses. And we lost 8 million small businesses last year permanently, never to open again. And so it's the small business, the renters, and yes, it is going to affect, this is on top of the school tax, and then the city, they kept their rate too. So if you live in the city, I don't see how you can afford to do it. But there's a lot of things that are going up, but nothing's ever coming down. The people don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I really think and they're getting very discouraged. Now, our sales tax was way up last year during the shutdown, but a lot of things happened. First of all, we could collect online sales tax on purchases, but also you paid more for the same goods that you paid less for the year before. So that's why your sales tax went up. So I'm just saying, first of all, the budget, the spending does drive the tax rate. And that's what everybody should be concerned about. And we set the budget at the last meeting of the year, for the year. So we'll be setting the budget for next year in December of this year. And the room should be full to hear that, where the money is going. You want to know where the money is going? Look at the budget. The budget is balanced at the time it's adopted. However, if you kind of break the rules as you go along, it doesn't do any good. We had $3 million in the capital improvement fund from the budget last year, but before the ink dried, most of it was spent. I think we may have, Rosalind, I don't know, 300,000 left out of 3 million? Yes. But that money was mainly put back to match grants that we get from the federal government and state government, and to match things that for the paving. And everywhere you go, people complain about the roads in this county, talking about how terrible they are. So, and this year, I don't know if we're going to get the 7 miles per district or not. I don't see Miguel in here, so, pardon?
He's not in here. Miguel, he's not in here.
Okay, he's not here, okay. But he had talked about that because of inflation, the cost of paving has gone up so much, we're not going to be paving at the same rate that we've been doing. So inflation is affecting everybody. It's affecting this government too, but it's affecting each individual out there. Just go to the grocery store. But anyway, I wanted to just kind of point out a few things that we're going to still make, what'd you say, 5 or 6 million, even if it's rolled back?
6.5 million.
6.5 million?
Yes, ma'am.
But if we don't, it's going to be 11 million. Okay, add that 28 million fund balance and add 11 million to that. So we're getting pretty much close to $40 million fund balance. So we just need to we need to recognize what's happening with our citizens. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guida. Any other
Madam Chair.
remarks? Vice Chair.
Yeah, just a point of clarity, and I need to see if we're going to talk about MAP. All right, we're talking about the millage rate, which does our operating budget. It's a recurring revenue. Stay with me. Now, I don't want to I don't want to make this so technical that I'm not trying to win the moment. But we talk about apples to apples, oranges to oranges. One more time. Right, we sat there as a priority. Public safety was number one. We have not taken care of, we collectively, as an administration, over 14 years, have neglected to pay appropriately for all the employees, let alone whether or not you believe that they should be more selectively paid a premium. Public safety, no problem. Now, if you have gone 14 years or 10 years, it's building up. You're behind. So the Board of Commissioners did commit to appropriating very carefully. If you paid attention to last year's Legislative Reform Act, it was very thoughtful on how we want to allocate money. Take care of the people who are delivering service, who protect and preserve. I'm going to hold you where your narrative is. Stay there. To pay for that, you have to have appropriate amount of recurring revenue. Did you listen to what the CFO just said? We funded that through a one-time and 100 years ARPA. The county has never historically saved anything. The fact that we are going on 40 million, great. You've been negligent in taking care of people. When you look in the eyes of that public safety, right, to your point, working 2 and 3 jobs, having to do the overtime. Exactly. Give them something that's consistent, my new HR director. Be consistent with whatever you come out of that study and how we pay people. And it doesn't have to be the one-offs. It doesn't have to be perceived that we're doing this person, that person. We'll come up with a policy that's consistent. That we don't have to have this conversation. Because I'm looking at y'all like, well, my job is to come in and check and balance to smooth it out. You need to take care of pay. So here we are on the other side of this. How are we going to pay for this? You need that cash to pay for the prior decision. This ain't about a future spend. Don't y'all see what's already on the books? All right, but that's what see that, if you buy into the ideology though, it's real subtle. Yeah, take care of those guys, but then they want you to get rid of all the excess and now you're going to get caught. That's an okie doke. It's like, are y'all listening to that? In other words, only put money over here on fire, get rid of all the other excess so nobody else gets anything else. Only me, no one else. Like, wow. Look at that narrative. You're going to come up short. You can't get there from here. You must take care of what you already have on the books. You got to hold this, guys. Oh, you will have to raise it intentionally. That's a big jump. What, 10% plus 5%? Already on the books? It's not part of your operating. Don't fall for this narrative, or you're going to feel it. And you can do your math. You already know this. There was not a desire to go and make public safety their own funding mechanism, since we want to talk about math. It didn't go forth last year. Some of you are brand new. You didn't know this. We talked about, like with the military. You know, you got the federal government, $2 trillion, since y'all want to play the federal game, and you got military. 2 separate budgets. We tried to do that here locally, but you didn't quite want to do it. In other words, it would be guaranteed. It would be absolute. It would be segregated. They didn't want to take it up. So when we talk about what the board thinks about, no, our capacity to be able to really look at this, we looked at different things. But it takes a collective will. And I do appreciate my board. I got to give them credit that says, no, you've done what you could do. We have reined it in. I know Commissioner Mitchell Wood weighed in a couple years ago. We swung that budget 15 points, and COVID saved us. Now, we recognize, no, you only can go so much. We only can make up so much. We don't have to prove anything. It's just making good decisions at any given moment, to, like, steady, balance this thing out. You don't have a mature set of policies, legislation on the books. We're hiring a brand new lot of people to sort of smooth this thing out and take it to the next level. I mean, I'll tell you the truth, like where we really are. We're like, look, we're doing the best we can. We got it. We hear you. But yeah, there are some new things that come along. There's refurbishing of the old. They both coexist. The question becomes at the end, they prioritize and who gets the dollar. It's always about where the dollar goes at the end of the day. And I've always said that, like, guys, follow the money. It's simple. But, Madam Chair, I just wanted to, I hear all the comments. I don't disagree with any position any of us one will take. Everybody will weigh in on this collectively. And again, we're paying for the current budget. This is not a new budget. As a matter of fact, so since you asked, the new budget is due in, I think, well, I'll let you handle that, Madam Chair. Can you explain the new budget process when we get through with this vote? I think that would be appropriate so people know the different milestones that we've got to go through going into 2023. But we're just simply paying for the budget that's already on the books. That's it. Madam Chair, I yield.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Chairman Robinson. Any other question, Board? Well, if there are no other.
Yeah.
Good. Commissioner Carthen, you have the floor.
I don't know if she's in here, but Ms. Sasha, thank you for your comment. There is a difference between Board of Assessors, Board of Commissioners, Board of Education, the City Council. All of those are different. And if you ever have an issue with your tax bill, you can always appeal it. So if someone told you to come see the Board of Commissioners about your tax bill, they told you wrong. But thank you for that, because that is now prompting me to do my town hall based on this. All of you all have valid points. You do. But it's in the education piece that you're kind of missing it. And so I can't tell you everything right here, although I want to, because I'm innately want to just tell you, okay, this is this, and this is this, and this is the actual budget amount. This year, our budget is how much did we appropriate?
110 million.
110 million. If you look at your page 9, it tells you that the millage rate that we are collecting and the revenue that will be collected from that is $75 million. But our CFO just told you that the budget is $110 million. So that means we have to make up the difference. Well, how do we make up that difference? How do we make up?
Point of order,
Hold on.
please.
So I really want you to think about this. How do we make up the difference? We make up the difference by getting in grants. We make up the difference by what we utilize from the court system. We make up the difference because in all of that, the Board of Commissioners really don't spend your money. We appropriate it to 27 departments. All of the departments, we don't say, okay, this is what you should spend. All we do is appropriate. They come to us and they say, hey, Madam Chair, here is what our budget is. Madam Chair brings it to the Board of Commissioners from the CFO and go, hey, this is what each department needs. Then each department comes in and then they justify this is what they need. And based on the pot of money that we have to divvy it up. Everybody needs. The Board of Commissioners, we don't really spend your money. We appropriate it. The narrative that a library is costing, or a park is costing, or a park doesn't have this, or the sheriff's department doesn't have that. We appropriate based on what we have, period. Nobody is overspending, right? I work 2 and 3 jobs, just like you. I pay taxes, just like you, and city taxes, and Board of Education taxes. I don't believe anybody up here, maybe minus one, is really looking at what this costs. Just like you said, eggs have gone up. We appropriate for the sheriff's office. They have to feed the inmates. They pay the same amount for the eggs that you and I do. Everything has gone up. We cannot simply run the county based on 2017 figures. It won't work because inflation hits us too. So there is no way, when we just lost a contract because a guy said, I can't do it for that amount, it's costing me more. So they had to drop the contract, come back 2 weeks ago and ask us, hey, can you appropriate? Because in order for us to get, I think it was the grass cut, it's costing more. It costs more for everybody. I would love to freeze prices at 2017. I wish I could, but none of us can. And the values are going up because people are selling. And they're selling because they're being offered more. And I can't go to my neighbor and say, don't you dare sell your house for $100,000 more, because that's going to impact me. It will, right? The values of their property goes up, the value of my property goes up, and then that means I'm going to pay more in taxes. But when I get ready to sell it, I'm happy about it. But as long as I'm living in it, I don't want that high tax burden. Nobody does. All of us up here are doing the very best we can with what we're given and what we have to appropriate for this county. We have almost 150,000 citizens. Each citizen wants something different. Each department wants something different. Each director wants something different. We are doing it based on what we all collectively put in that pot. So the narrative of the Board of Commissioners is overspending, or the narrative of the Board of Commissioners has these pet projects, that's all a false narrative, because all you got to do is look at the data. Look at the data. Get the budget. It's printed right there. You can go to any of these department directors and ask them, are you
Point of
spending
order.
the money?
Audience, please.
Are you spending all of the money? How are you spending the money? Because the Board of Commissioners is not spending it. We appropriate to the departments. We do. We appropriate to the elected officials. We appropriate. We don't sit here and write checks to everybody. We just appropriate. And it's based on the need of the county. I can't dare tell my sheriff or my tax commissioner what they don't need to run their office. They know exactly what they need. They know it. And we don't always give what it is. But I would love to, but we can't because we have so many other departments that we have to give to. I want to squash this right now. Data don't lie. Everybody can have their own narrative. You can have your own opinion, but the facts are the facts. Period. We can all have different opinions, but we can't have different facts, right? The facts are on the paper. The facts are in the budget. The facts are the facts. So I want to squash this about us spending. As a matter of fact, I was the one, 2 years ago when we did it, I said, we will never, ever increase taxes under my watch because we will never spend more than we bring in. And this board approved that policy 5-0. I'm a businesswoman. I know how to run a business. Never been in the red. Facts. So when somebody tells me something about what I'm doing and I know that's not right, I do get offended because I'm doing the very best I can as your District 3 Commissioner. And anytime I feel like I am not, I wouldn't sit up here because it doesn't pay me to really sit up here. It doesn't. I get paid $21,000 a year. I could not afford to sit in this county if that's all I made, right? I sit up here because as a citizen, I have daughters. I have grandkids that are about to come. I want them to have the very best county they can. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I've been here 22 years. No. At some point, right, you can have your opinions, but look at the numbers and look at the facts, and then let's have a conversation. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Carthen. Any other remarks?
Yes, just
Commissioner
just
Mitchell,
one-
you have the floor.
Just one, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bivens, just one quick, make sure that I heard something correctly, that someone is paying $100 monthly based on this narrative here that if this increase was accepted by this board, that will be an increase, I'm going to use your number, of $160,000 home. Would he or she be paying $100 a month, or is that's a misnomer?
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mitchell.
Okay.
So what I did, I went back because one of the speakers stated that the average assessed value, I think, was $360,000. So I recalculated it, so we can use the 360.
And I was going to go there too, though, but go right ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So based on that 360,000 assessed value, the taxable value is $138,000.
Okay.
If we go to the rollback rate, they would pay $1,645.93
Okay.
in property taxes. Maintaining the millage rate, they would pay $1,733.69. That's an additional $87.76 per year.
I had about 80.
Which is about $7.31 a month.
I had about 80. You're right.
Right.
I just want to make sure that narrative was really correct in the statement being made about $100 per month. I didn't think that was correct.
And if I may, that is because that is the total. That's for the school board, that's for the county.
Understood.
And if they live in the city, so yes, it could be $100 with all three of the entities.
Oh, understood.
But the county's portion is not $100
Right,
a
right, 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 right. And I'm only speaking of the county's portion.
Yes.
Though. Okay, got you. Okay, all right. So just for clarity, because I was actually going back to what you just stated about, I was just going to double the 160 or so and round up to about 40. So I said about 82, 83 as a number, but here nor there. I just, and I think where the problem come in is the educational side of this. I agree with Commissioner Carthen. I think we got to understand there's a separation of the two. They kind of go hand in glove, but they're different, meaning the millage rate has something to do with, but not with the assessed value. And if you can separate the two, you can better understand kind of what this really consists of and what this really is. I've had a coffee conversation meeting with my colleagues and trying to explain this to make sure that you separate the two to understand that. But it gets still a little tricky because it's hard to understand because only thing you see is your taxes went up, not based on the millage rate, but it was based on the assessed value. I'm a true property owner and I believe in property rights. And I truly believe that in making this kind of a statement, meaning I have the right to sell, live, rent, or do as I see fit that's legal with my properties. So with that, I would never be the one who will state to any property owner that you can't rent, sell, buy, move, yield to your property. That's on you. But long as it's within the codes, then you are justifiably right in what you're doing, long as it's within the codes. So, all right. But with that, there are a lot of tough decisions, I think, that's being made here with this board. I think I can actually say, because I've been on this board for a very long time, so to my colleagues, we've always balanced the budget, whether it's dealing with tan dollars, whether it's dealing with, which I've never, agreed upon, a millage rate increase, but the budget annually is balanced. So just for the record, is that a true statement or not? And I don't know if that's for you and or Rosalind.
Based on what I observed when I came in and looked at everything, the budget was balanced.
I would say yes to that.
Yes.
Okay. Now, with that, here we are, and trying to understand that the assessed values is what the problem is, because I've always been a proponent. If you go back and do the numbers, and you'll know that we've rolled back on several years, and I'll calculate it to be somewhere between $6 to maybe $9 million. Rosalind helped me with that. Am I calculating it right when we did all the rollbacks? Because I've always said, if this board is going to roll back, I'm not going to vote against it. But I'll tell you this, though, when you do that, here's what you set yourself up for. It's become problematic, because if the cost of doing business is the cost of living and everything else is going up, and you're rolling it back, that has an effect on the millage rate. Yes, and it has a negative effect. It has a revenue negative effect to the millage rate. And yes, you may have saved $36 or let's say $87. Great. But you also created an expense that's going to still continue to, that grass, somebody mentioned earlier that it costs to cut the grass, that cost went up. The gas cost went up. As you stated, the cost of eggs and groceries and all that stuff, because I pay the same thing, it went up. But do understand, if you do that, just understand what the outcome is. We passed a SPLOST some years ago. We're coming out of this last SPLOST, and we've been charged with trying to ensure a senior citizen center, a radio system, $15 million, a community center, and so on. All that the community and or citizens of Douglas County requested. Not a problem. But what I always say, understand there's a cost associated with that. That brick and mortar is great to have. Those shiny objects are great to have. But when we get to the real cost of running that senior citizen center, when we get to the real cost of running that community center on an average of about $500,000, we got a new fire station. I think we do need another one. But when we come to the operational cost, That's when it gets real. That's when when things are really come to a realization of, oh, now I need additional funds. So that's why I've always been a proponent to say, leave the millage rate where it is. I'm not for raising the millage rate. Understand. But here nor there, I just want us to make sure we probably educate more so to clearly understand as to where the fight truly is. It's truly not with the Board of Commissioners. It really isn't. It's with your assessors. It's with the Board of Equalization. And I can't speak for the school board and others. I want, city tax and all that. I'm not going to go there, but that's where the fight truly is. Because if while living in your property, you want to pay the least amount in taxes, understood. But if you chose to sell your property, you want the highest yield to your dollar or your value, but you can't have both worlds. Because we have an operation here that has to happen, that we've got to do, and we've got to move forward with that type of, what the operation can, and the services that the citizens of Douglas County would prefer and expect. And that comes with the price tag. So, Ms. Bivens, Rosalind, I think you guys have done an excellent job at explaining it. I think the numbers or the data, as stated, these are the facts. Do I like them? No. Are we overspending? No. Could we have cut in some other places? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think to roll back, you'll hurt yourself. Because when we release ourselves from the ARPA funds, we'll be here asking the question of how do we now make that payment that we gave the sheriff. Did we give him 10%, I think, in the first? Okay, those numbers. We got those salary increases. All those funds, that the ARPA funds, that our state dollars, and federal dollars, I think we've used them well. But it's going to come to a close. It's going to come to an end. There's an expiration date on that, on the ARPA funds. When that date hit, the question is, where are we going to be as a board? And if my math serves me correct, Ms. Bivens or Rosalind, when we even get to that point, if we keep the millage rate where it is or don't roll back, will some of that be covered within that funding source? Please help me to understand it so I can make sure I'm not messing up my thought process.
Yes, sir. So, based, and Rosalind just looked the numbers up, I believe it's about $9 to $10 million total for all of the increases that we have given that we're going to have to cover moving forward.
Correct.
And maintaining the millage rate will allow us to do that as we move forward based on that.
And what it will also do, it will help in the mere fact of having to do what I call a millage rate increase.
Yes.
So if you roll back, you've got to look at that number. So that's why you got to think ahead. I think that's why all of my colleagues always try to think ahead, look to the future, and think about what the future looks like when it comes to dollars and cents and budget. Because if you don't, if you think right now, the right thing right now, say, hey, roll it back. Save $30 in a nickel.
We'll have to increase it in the future.
But in the future, you'll have to look at how do you pay that? Because that expense won't go away. Now, you could lay off, you could furlough, and we'll go to that whole, it's like, oh, but I thought that's not what we don't want. So, thank you, Ms. Bivens, and thank you to those that came out, and I agree this room should have been packed with questions. Should be packed with Q&A about why not. But maybe the reason this room is not packed is because maybe quite a few people understands. Well, so, excuse me, okay, all right.
Order. Point of order.
You can leave, I'm not going to disrespect you. Okay, so, but maybe those that didn't make it, the meeting, for whatever reason, it could be because they already understood what this is and the problematic situation that we're encountering, that we're engaging with. Not whether or not you like it or not. This is not a likable situation. I'm not trying to do a popularity contest. I'm just trying to give you the facts and the numbers and what they are and we can agree to disagree. That's okay. But again, thank you guys for what you guys have presented, and I'll yield back, Madam Chair, and I guess we'll call the question.
Thank you so much, and I just certainly want to close out by saying that I really appreciate my more seasoned board members who have really, you know, when you first come in office, I was a freshman in 2017 and gung-ho and rolled back to taxes in 2017, rolled back in 2018, and lo and behold, did I learn quickly that qualitative is based on perception. And I'm a very qualitative person, but I had to put the heart aside. And then realize that quantitative is based on data-driven facts. So keeping the millage rate the same, in my opinion, and certainly that was a question I had, I said, if you keep it the same, to me, you're not raising taxes, it's the same. But of course, the state of Georgia has something different that they use in terms of metrics. Respectfully, Douglas County is not a rural county, it is a metro county. That's why I sit on the ARC board. It is considered a metro county. The Board of Commissioners do not control the tax assessors or the assessments. Certainly, the citizens have the right to appeal. And also, gracefully, and I feel honored to be a senior citizen in this county as well. And I heard our seniors this morning, I'm with my pom-poms with you. But I am so thankful, and we are so blessed as seniors to have taxes, the relief of no school taxes after 62 years of age here in this county, unlike most counties. And I think that is a true blessing from God. And so we don't have to worry about those taxes, so they go away, and I had an opportunity to see what it looks like this year, and I was happy. So I'm just saying, you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, the seniors realize that we do give you relief. We do. And as a senior, I can now speak. I'm not just behind the veil. I'm in the room. So we did get some relief. We do get relief, and you will get relief when you become 65 as well. So I just want to make sure that we understand that. And our rainy day funds, when I came into office, we wrote on 10% of our total budget. That's scary. Can't rest at night. I don't know when the next storm is coming, when the next earthquake, if we have one. We've had one when I first moved to Georgia. He had an earthquake in 2002. So you don't know what's going to happen. So living on the edge is uncomfortable. Thank you, Commissioner Carthen, for saying, okay, let's tighten this thing up. She's a businesswoman, as she mentioned earlier, and also Vice Chairman Robinson, who look at numbers clearly, and Commissioner Mitchell, who understands real estate wholeheartedly. So with that being said, I have to step back and open my mind and not just be a one-way type leader. I have to think. I said, wait a minute now. What we don't want to do is find ourselves in a bad position on forever and ever, because I know that could be a very problematic. 2012 and 2013, your taxes were raised almost 50%. 2 years consecutively, your taxes were raised. Maybe I wasn't engaged, but I just paid it and moved on. We had to unexpectedly raise taxes in 2020 simply because of the pandemic. We were already riding on a low fund balance. That fund balance is rainy day funds. And to ride, I don't know about you, and when my checkbook is low, I'm nervous. I couldn't rest at night. So we had to do something that was unprecedented, but we had an unprecedented moment. We had a pandemic. And we had to make some decisions. They were tough, but we didn't only charge our property owners. We even worked internally in our organization. We cut back expenses. We doubled down. We had to, we furloughed 5 days, which that was unacceptable. So the Board of Commissioners, we're always in the middle, but I want to make sure you all understand we only appropriate to keep this county going. And our goal is to make sure that we don't miss a beat. And we will continue to provide the best services, and we don't waste your money. We all are taxpayers, just like every citizen in this county. And again, Board of Commissioners, thank you for your time today, and I really appreciate this education. Hopefully, is not taken lightly, and if we can make sure that this information is made available to our citizens online, I would greatly appreciate it. So they could because education is key. Once you look at, if you learn anything, education will make you a much prudent, smarter person, and you'll understand why something is being done. Board of Commissioners, I'm going to call the question. We have two resolutions this morning. We have the school board millage rate we must adopt as well. And I know all 4 municipalities in this county, everybody held steady. Nobody decided to roll back. We just said keep it the same. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution for the school board 2022 proposed, or should I say their millage rate? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. No, you're fine. I think you're fine.
Nobody's popped up. Nothing popped up on mine. Yes, yes. Yes. Madam Chair.
Okay, there we are. Sorry, we have a 5-0 unanimous vote and the motion carries. Okay, we have a 5-0 unanimous vote to Board of Commissioners to adopt the Board of Education's 2022 millage rate. We're going to move on to tab number 2 under resolutions. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners 2022 millage rate as proposed to keep it the same? Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. We have a 4-1 vote, and the motion carries to adopt the resolution to keep the 2022 millage rate the same millage rate. Okay, and the motion carries. Board of Commissioners, do we have anything else to add before we close out?
Just one, Madam Chair.
Okay, Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
I'll be quick. I just want to acknowledge all the panelists that came out to my 6th annual HOA boot camp this past weekend. Very good panel for 4 hours. Had well attendance online. It was a hybrid as well as in person. To Amy McCoy, to Gregory Wallace. Leslie Chu could not be there, as well as Allison Duncan. We had and Mike Stevens. We also Arrington. We had a representative from Donzella James. Very good, David Good, and of course Lieutenant Colonel Pounds. I would encourage all of you to go and take a look at it. It has some great information, very balanced. But again, thank you so much for support, and thank you, administration, definitely communications, and you guys, you came through for us. Madam Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else to come before this body, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. The special call meeting is adjourned.